Hello, sweet friends, and welcome to stellarjstudios. I am Gina, and I am so happy you are here with me today. I'm going to work on a little study, and I'm going to do it in my wallpaper sketchbook that I have here. If you're not familiar with it, a study is where you take something and you do little experiments with it. You try out different things. I have some studies in here. So this was a study on rainbows where I just tried out color combinations, different lines, different compositions. And it's just really a thing for you to do some exploration. There's not a lot of finished work in here because it's just about practice. So I'm going to do a study today, and the study I'm going to do is on layers, creating layers in my work. Let's just do this with a crayon. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I got 4 on the bottom. So I got 8 boxes I can work with. And I'm not for sure if I'm going to use all 8 of those. We'll just see. But basically what I want to do is I want to play around with different mediums. So this is a glazing liquid. This is a matte medium, and this is clear gesso, and this is a gloss medium. And I want to see the different effects I get when I'm building up layers. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and paint the background of a couple of these squares. And I'm just using a craft paint, and I'm just using a green just because it was on my desk. And I'm not worried too much about staying in the lines. I'm a pretty messy painter, so I'm okay if things overlap. And I will be able to tell the differences when I put them right next to each other. And I'll just go ahead and divide these again so it's a little bit easier to see. All right, my first layer of paint is down, and you can see that it is it's matte. I'm going to go in first with a pastel. Let's just go with a chalk pastel, and I'm just going to add some circles. And I'll probably try to keep the composition of this all the same because I really want to study the effects of the mediums and not so much like the different compositions and things like that. I'm going to use a paint marker for this. I'm going to use a Neocolor 1. This is a permanent wax pastel, so this is not water soluble. So this is like a high-powered crayon. A lot of pigment in this, much more than a Crayola crayon. And speaking of which, I'll just go ahead and put a couple of those in. And now I'm going to use a Neocolor 2. Now this one is a water soluble, so it still has wax in it. It's just that the way the wax is, it will dissolve with water. Okay, so this is another craft paint. I've got a little bit of water on this brush, so it's going to be a little watery, and that's okay because I kind of want to see the effect of when it's like a wash. And I can even go over my little crayons down here, my little crayon marks, and we'll see what happens. I'm gonna get a piece of paper and I'll just blot that so that we've just got a little bit of the paint showing. Now again, these are craft paints, so you're gonna get a much different effect than if you were using a higher quality paint But for this little study, I'm okay with it. I could actually take this a step further, and once I do it with the lower quality paints, I could then go back and do the same study with a higher quality paint. This is a Prismacolor white colored pencil, and that right there is a study all in itself. You could go and do a study on different whites, white markers, white crayons, white pencils. And while I've got my Prismas out, I'll just go ahead and add a few more. Let's use this China marker. This is a black, and let's see what happens there. Okay, that's pretty bold. I'm gonna hit it with a heat gun. Okay, I lied to you again. I am gonna come in with, I'm just gonna do a quick little oil pastel, a couple little marks with an oil pastel. And I know oil pastels are supposed to be your final layer, but sometimes I do put them in my art and I do cover them up. I just use them very sparingly. I'm gonna cover each one of these with a different medium. I'm gonna start with a matte medium, and I'm just gonna actually put it on the actual square itself. Gloss medium. I love gloss medium. I really want to see the difference between these two side by side. The gloss medium, I absolutely adore. It makes the colors pop, so you can see, I don't know if you can see this, but it is so vibrant. And of course it dries glossy. Okay, the next one I'm gonna use clear gesso. And I like Liquitex gesso because it is a gritty texture. And I like that gritty texture, especially if I'm using pencils, soft pastels, because it grabs on. Now, it's much cloudier. When these dry, they'll have a different sheen to them once they completely dry. A glazing liquid, and this is gloss. And I don't know, I just want to try it out. Just want to see what it does. I could put a layer of Mod Podge and try that. I don't typically use Mod Podge when I'm doing a piece of art. I save that more for like my collaging or bookmaking. So we'll use this glazing medium and see what it does. And you use this, or I use this, when I'm trying to reduce the opacity of paint. So when I mix it with, let's say I mix it with this green here, it'll make it, see how it makes it way more translucent, so you can see through it and it's not as opaque. So I just wanted to try it and see what it was going to do on this. All right, so let's hit this with a heat gun. So they're pretty dry. This one's a little sticky still, that one. Okay, so from here, so this was my matte medium, and it's got a matte finish, and it did make the colors pop out. It did bring out the colors. I can definitely see that was our chalk pastel. I can definitely see that a little better. Yeah, so, I mean, but it just basically looks the same. This was our gesso, and it looks a lot like the matte medium. It's just very gritty, okay? Here was our gloss medium. So of course the colors are all gonna pop a lot more because this is glossy. Especially, look at that, the Neo Color 2 that I used down there. Or no, that was the Neo Color 1. That was not the water-soluble one. Now, the Neo Color 2, the water-soluble one, look how it washed away. Now, that's because it's water-soluble. So if you do go, or when I go over anything water-soluble, I don't go over it a bunch of times, and I did go over these quite a few, but when I'm working on a piece, I only go over it one swipe because I don't want it to run. And then here was our glazing liquid. It's not as glossy as this, but it does have a little bit of a sheen. Okay, so this was not the whole thing that I wanted to do here. What I want to do is layers. So now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add some more layers on top of this. And I want to see the different effects that we get. So I'm going to take a chalk pastel. Okay. Okay, so just the chalk pastel. Look at how much more the clear gesso picked up the chalk pastel. And then the gloss medium, you couldn't get a line on it because it just slid right over. This is interesting though, because you were able to get a pretty good line over that. And then there's your matte medium, which is a little less than this one. That's interesting. Now, I don't know if you can tell this or not, but I can tell how just putting that layer of medium has kind of pushed the dark blue marks to the back, and now these new marks that I have, they're popping. And I know it's hard to see on camera, but it did. It gave it some depth. It pushed that stuff back a little bit. Mix up a little different color here. You can see on the gloss medium, the paint doesn't stick as well. And then it should stick really well. Look how it sticks on that clear gesso. What I'm going to use this for is I'm going to label what I have over here. Let's put a paint pen before I cover it with anything. The matte medium did a really good job of holding the paint. When I did the gloss medium, the paint doesn't want to hold as much because it's on a glossy surface, but yet the colors were so vibrant. Over here on this clear gesso, everything wanted to stick really, really well. And the glazing medium, it was kind of in between these two right here. It was more similar to the clear gesso. I want to cover them with each of the 4 mediums. I'm going to start with matte medium. Let's try the gloss medium. Clear gesso. And now for the glazing liquid. Let's hit it with a heat gun. Okay, before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and put what I did here. So this one was matte. This one was gloss. This one was gesso. And the last one was glaze. I'm looking to see how the layers worked. The gloss over the gloss, I can see a lot of the depth. The gloss under the matte, I can see a lot of depth also. So let me go up here. So this is matte and then gloss over it, and I can see a lot of depth, and then matte with matte over it. Not too much of the depth. I don't see as much there. Now over here with the gesso, the clear gesso, you can definitely see, like I can definitely see some depth there. And when I go over the chalk pastels, this one did the best of holding its line and its shape. Going over the gloss was just too much. The chalk pastel didn't have anything to hold on to. And this one was a surprise, the glazing. I did not know it was going to work this well. By far, I would say gloss on top gives me the best results. It's just that foundation layer gives you the different beginnings. And if I had to pick a foundation layer, I almost feel like the clear gesso I really like that clear gesso, or even the glazing. The glazing was good too. Okay, so let's go again. Let's add some more. Let's take a look. So they're pretty dry. I love the effects that I got, and I love that I can see them all in one spot. This is going to take me a while to really go through and study, the more it dries, really go through and study what properties I get by using the different mediums. I already know that, and I knew this, but going through the test, you know, the gloss medium is going to give me the best color, the best clarity, the best brightness. So it would be what you'd want to use on a top layer, or what I would want to use on a top layer. As for the bottom layer, you know, you can't beat the clear gesso because everything wants to stick to it. And so if I want my bottom layer to really stand out and to hold all of its color and line and shape and everything that I put down, I'm going to want to use that clear gesso. Now, the glazing medium, or the great glazing liquid, that was interesting because I was not anticipating it to really give me too much effects, because like I said, I've always used it with mixing my colors, or mixing with my colors. I can see, and I know it might be hard on the camera, but what I can really see is when I move it through the light, that's when I can see the different layers. And now when I go to work on a piece, I can pull this back out and I can say, okay, what do I want to see on this piece? Do I want it to be shiny? Do I want it to be gritty? Do I really want my lines to stand out, my marks to stand out? And I can also take this outside and see what it's like in the sunlight. That's going to give me a different view through a different type of light, and that's going to be interesting too. This little study is going to be a great tool for me to use as I move on with different pieces of work and different work in my journals. I can always refer back to this and see what results I got, and then try to recreate those in my next work. I hope you learned something. I hope you got inspired and want to go out and maybe create a little study of your own. I hope you are healthy. I hope you are happy. I hope you are going to do something creative today. Until next time, bye.